Welcome back. Women's rights is one of the key aspects of the United States global agenda. Cathy Russell is the U.S. Ambassador at Large for Global Women's Issues. She recently visited Sierra Leone, Zambia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. In an interview with Africa 54's Linord Moudou, Ambassador Russell discusses the challenges faced by some women and girls and the need for girls to receive an education.
One obstacle that we see everywhere in the world is that women face the challenge of violence, whether in the home, in their communities. In many places, they're not being as educated as often as the boys in their communities. We see it particularly, we see pretty good numbers at the primary school level, but girls seem to be dropping out in higher numbers at the adolescent age and sort of secondary school levels, and we're trying to understand the reasons for that and what we can do about that, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Southeast Asia.
You just returned from sub-Saharan Africa. You visited 3 countries with Dr. Jill Biden, and we know that Islamic militants in Nigeria and in other parts of the world are challenging the right of women and girls to get an education. Now, in an environment like this, at a time like this, what type of message will you convey?
Well, you know, I think the whole world was horrified and continues to be horrified by the attacks on the young girls that we saw in Nigeria. Similarly, the attack on Malala Yousafzai in Pakistan. And I think what we see is that these militants are so threatened by girls' education. And I think the reason for that is that they thrive on ignorance. I guess that's the way I would say it. They want to keep people as ignorant as possible, and they see education as a threat to their very backward ideas. And so I think from our perspective, it really is critical that we redouble our efforts and do everything we can to help girls be educated, to invest as much as we can in those girls, and to say that we believe in them and we believe in their futures and we believe that they are critical to their countries. President Obama believes that, Secretary Kerry believes that. No country will ever get ahead if they don't invest in their women and girls.
You mentioned violence against women, and you visited the Panzi Hospital in Eastern DRC. You met these women. What was the experience like?
It's very heartbreaking, but these women have just incredible spirit. You know, Dr. Mukwege has taken them and given them another chance in life, and so sometimes, you know, when they have these fistulas, they have just terrible consequences of those, and sometimes they're ostracized in their communities because they have just terrible problems as a result of the fistulas that make them sometimes in their communities. And so he deals with that problem, and so I think they feel wonderful again, and they are given sometimes economic opportunities there. There's a legal clinic there, so sometimes they have the ability to see some sort of consequences to the perpetrators of the violence.
Now, these women at the Panzi Hospital are clearly a typical example of how rape is used as a weapon of war. How do you think that women can be protected in a setting where there is war, there is chaos, and they're just there?
We really are at a point now where the international community is saying that rape as a tactic of war is no longer, not that it was ever okay, but we are all coming together now and saying this is not okay any longer, and that we will not tolerate this. We are trying to make sure that there are sanctions in place and mechanisms so that we can punish the people who do this so that they can't act with impunity. There's no question that that's very hard to do because these situations are so unstable, and it's sometimes hard for women to identify who perpetrated the acts, but we're working on that, and we are really very focused in the United States on trying to work through some of these issues, and there are many other countries as well who are very focused on that, and I'm hopeful that we'll get to the point where this will no longer be a common situation as we see now.
During your trip, you were joined by Rajiv Shah, who is the head of USAID. Can you share with us some of the programs, the U.S. programs that are in place to help educate girls?
The United States government and other governments as well spends, you know, a great deal of money in Africa at this point mostly on primary education for girls in many countries in Africa. We recently announced another program called Let Girls Let Girls Learn, which spends, again, a substantial amount of money in several countries focused on trying to keep girls in school, mostly, again, at the primary level. And I think that really we're looking to say that these girls need to have the opportunity from the earliest ages to have the education that they deserve.